The grand assembly hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with the kind of pretentious chatter you'd expect from beings who thought they ruled the universe. Which, to be fair, they mostly did. At least until today. Ambassador Kreeg adjusted his iridescent feathers and preened smugly as he addressed the assembly. Picture a peacock that went to Harvard and never shut up about it. That was Kreeg. Distinguished colleagues, he squawked, his voice carrying that particular brand of arrogance reserved for those who've never been punched in the face. We gather today to discuss the laughable situation in Sector 7G. The humans, those delightfully primitive bipeds, have erected what they call warning buoys around their pathetic solar system. A chorus of amused chirps, clicks, and gurgles filled the chamber. Captain Vex, a 7-foot-tall reptilian, whose idea of diplomacy involved showing his teeth, hissed with what passed for laughter among his species. Warning buoys. Vex's forked tongue flicked out dismissively. These mammals barely mastered fire a few thousand years ago, and now they think they can establish borders in space? My hatchlings could disable their defenses with a plasma slingshot. Dr. Quilmoth, who looked like someone had taught a pile of purple jello to wear spectacles and develop opinions, wobbled forward to the speaking platform. When Quilmoth spoke, it was with the insufferable tone of someone who'd read every book in the galaxy but had never actually lived in it. My extensive research confirms what we all suspect, Quilmoth gurgled, projecting holographic charts that nobody was actually reading. Homo sapiens possess neither the technological sophistication nor the strategic intelligence to pose any legitimate threat to our exploration efforts. Their brain-to-body mass ratio is adequate for tool use, but woefully insufficient for advanced tactical thinking. The assembled delegates nodded sagely, because nothing makes beings feel superior quite like peer-reviewed condescension. Kreeg ruffled his feathers importantly. The humans have cordoned off approximately 12 light-years around their system with these so-called warning beacons. The messages are positively adorable. Please respect our boundaries. This area is under human protection. Unauthorized entry may result in unpleasant consequences. More laughter rippled through the chamber. Unpleasant consequences from humans? What were they going to do? Throw sticks. The question before us, Kreeg continued, is whether we should continue honoring this quaint attempt at sovereignty, or proceed with our scientific survey of the region as originally planned. Captain Vex's tail thrashed with barely contained military enthusiasm. The hegemony's fleet could sweep their defenses aside in a standard day cycle. These mammals need to learn their place in the galactic hierarchy. Dr. Quilmoth's gelatinous mass quivered with academic excitement. From a research perspective, this presents an unprecedented opportunity to study human behavior under stress. But how do they react when their bluffing is called? What defense mechanisms do they employ when faced with superior technology? The vote was unanimous, because of course it was. When had the Galactic Council ever met a bad idea it couldn't make worse? Excellent, Kreeg announced, his feathers practically glowing with self-satisfaction. We'll dispatch a research fleet immediately. 5 ships should be more than adequate to penetrate their perimeter and establish observation posts. After all, what's the worst that could happen? 3 days later, Commander Blaxus stood before his assembled crew in the briefing room of the flagship Inevitable Conquest. Blaxus was the kind of military officer who pressed his uniforms with mathematical precision and filed reports in triplicate even when nobody asked. His species had evolved from something resembling a cross between a shark and a filing cabinet, and it showed. Officers. Blaxus began, consulting his datapad with the fervor of someone who truly believed that proper documentation was the highest form of patriotism. We have been tasked with breaching the human perimeter and establishing research stations within their claimed territory. Mission parameters are straightforward: penetrate, observe, document, return. Navigator Pip's compound eyes twitched nervously. Pip looked like a praying mantis that had developed anxiety disorders and a concerning caffeine addiction. His wings buzzed constantly, creating a background hum that everyone politely ignored. Commander, Pip chittered, his mandibles clicking with worry, I've been analyzing human behavioral patterns. And there's something unsettling about their consistency. Most species either bluster aggressively or submit when faced with superior force. Humans just keep doing what they were doing. It's unnatural. Chief Science Officer Gromit scoffed, his cybernetic implants whirring with mechanical superiority. Gromit had replaced so many of his original body parts with technology that he was basically a walking advertisement for the benefits of planned obsolescence. Navigator Pip, your concerns are noted but unnecessary, Gromit announced, his voice synthesized to remove any trace of doubt or personality. I've developed a comprehensive stealth approach that renders our fleet virtually undetectable. We'll phase shift our hulls to match local background radiation, mask our engine signatures with holographic projectors, and maintain communication silence until we're well within their system. Security Chief Thunk, who looked like someone had decided a boulder needed arms and a badge, scratched his granite-like chin thoughtfully. Despite his appearance, Thunk was the kind of being who read philosophy in his spare time and asked uncomfortable questions during staff meetings. Has anyone actually asked why the humans established these boundaries? Thunk rumbled, his voice carrying the slow deliberation of geological time. Most species expand aggressively. Humans seem content to stay in one system. That's either remarkable restraint or remarkable confidence. Neither option fills me with optimism. Blaxus consulted his datapad again, because when you're uncomfortable with a question, the best response is to check your notes harder. Security Chief Thunk, intelligence reports indicate that humans lack the technological capability for significant expansion. Their containment is likely resource-based rather than strategic. Gromit's optical sensors flickered with smugness. My analysis supports Commander Blaxus's assessment. Human technology is primitive, their weapons are chemically based, and their ships still rely on reaction drives. We're dealing with a species that thinks nuclear fission is sophisticated. Pip's wings buzzed faster, which was his species' equivalent of hyperventilating. But what if we're wrong? What if there's something we're not seeing? Navigator Pip, Blaxus said with the patience of someone who'd never been catastrophically wrong about anything. The Galactic Council has made its decision based on comprehensive analysis. Our mission is to execute, not to second-guess. The 5 ships of the research fleet launched 6 hours later. The inevitable conquest, scientific superiority, manifest destiny, cultural hegemony, and academic pride. Each name chosen with the kind of subtle irony that the universe tends to appreciate right up until the moment it doesn't. As they approached the edge of human space, Gromit ran final diagnostics on his stealth systems. Pip plotted their course with nervous precision, and Thunk quietly wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. They were about to find out just how terrible. 2 weeks into their journey, the fleet encountered their first human warning buoy at the edge of the claimed territory. It was, by galactic standards, laughably primitive. A simple metal sphere bristling with basic communication arrays and what appeared to be some kind of rudimentary scanning equipment. That's it? Captain Vex transmitted from the Manifest Destiny. This is what's supposed to keep us out. I've seen more intimidating lawn ornaments. The buoy activated as they approached, broadcasting on multiple frequencies with the kind of cheerful persistence usually associated with door-to-door salespeople and religious missionaries. Hello there, came a distinctly human voice, male, middle-aged, and possessing the sort of folksy warmth that immediately made everyone suspicious. You seem to have wandered into our neighborhood. Now we're friendly folks here in the Sol system, but we do like our privacy. This is your official notification that you're entering human-protected space. Gromit's scanners indicated the message was being broadcast from a simple digital storage device. No artificial intelligence, no adaptive responses, just a recording. How quaint. The voice continued with relentless politeness. We understand that space is big and sometimes people get lost. It happens to the best of us. But we've put up these little beacons for a reason, and that reason is that things tend to go poorly for folks who don't respect our boundaries. Not because we're mean, mind you, but because we're thorough. Dr. Quilmoth's research vessel Academic Pride moved closer to the buoy, scientific instruments extended like the antennae of a very curious and very stupid insect. Fascinating, Quilmoth gurgled. The psychological profile is intriguing. They're attempting to establish authority through casual friendliness rather than direct threat. It's almost endearing. The recording wasn't finished. Now we're going to assume you're reasonable beings who just need a gentle reminder about respecting other people's property. So here's your gentle reminder. Turn around. Go back the way you came. Find something else to do with your time. We've got board games and streaming services if you're bored, but you'll have to enjoy them from outside our space. Commander Blaxus found the whole display mildly insulting. Primitive intimidation tactics. They're trying to appear non-threatening while establishing territorial boundaries. Textbook mammalian behavior. But sir, Navigator Pip chittered nervously. Why go to the trouble of establishing boundaries if they can't enforce them? Most species either defend aggressively or submit. This middle ground is unusual. The human voice adopted an almost apologetic tone. Look, we really don't want any trouble. But if you keep coming this way, things are going to get weird. Not dangerous necessarily, but definitely weird. And probably frustrating. We're very good at frustrating. It's like a national hobby. Captain Vex's disdainful hiss carried across the communication channel. Enough of this theatrical nonsense. All ships, proceed as planned. Grommet, activate stealth systems. The fleet moved past the buoy, which continued broadcasting its polite warnings to empty space. Within an hour, they encountered 17 more buoys, each with slight variations on the same theme. The humans seemed to really enjoy the sound of their own voices. It was the 18th buoy where things got interesting. Well, shoot, said a different human voice, this one female and sounding genuinely disappointed. Why, y'all really didn't listen, did you? That's a shame. We were hoping you were smarter than that. The scientific superiority suddenly went dark. No explosion, no dramatic systems failure, just instant and complete power loss. The ship began drifting, its crew presumably alive but completely cut off from the fleet. Ha, said the female voice. Would you look at that? It's technical difficulties. Funny how that happens. Grommet's instruments showed no sign of weapons fire, no energy discharge, no indication of any external interference. The scientific superiority had simply stopped working, as if someone had flipped a switch. Coincidence, Blaxus announced, though his voice carried slightly less conviction than before. A mechanical failure. These things happen. Sure they do, agreed the human voice pleasantly. They happen a lot around here, especially to folks who don't listen. The remaining 4 ships continued forward, because retreating now would mean admitting that humans might actually know what they were doing. And that was clearly impossible. Wasn't it? The second ship, Cultural Hegemony, encountered what appeared to be a small human patrol vessel 12 hours later. It was tiny by galactic standards, barely the size of a shuttle, and looked like it had been assembled in someone's garage by enthusiasts who'd read a book about spaceship design but hadn't necessarily understood it. Captain Vex opened a communication channel, fully prepared to demonstrate proper military intimidation techniques. Attention, human vessel, he hissed with all the menace his species could muster. You are interfering with a legitimate scientific expedition. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. The response came from a human male with the kind of accent that suggested he'd grown up somewhere with more cows than people, and was perfectly comfortable with that arrangement. Well, howdy there, partner, came the reply, cheerful as a summer barbecue. Name's Captain Murphy. Why all seem to be lost? This here's human space, and we generally prefer visitors to call ahead. Vex's tail lashed with irritation. I am Captain Vex of the Hegemony 4th Fleet. You will move aside or be moved aside. Oh, I don't think so, Murphy replied with the kind of calm certainty usually reserved for people discussing the weather or the inevitability of taxes. See, we've got signs posted and everything. Big signs. With words. Why, all read words, don't you? The cultural hegemony trained its weapons on the small human vessel, because sometimes the direct approach is the best approach right up until it isn't. Final warning, human. Stand down or be destroyed. Well, that's just rude, Murphy observed. And here I was trying to be neighborly. Tell you what, let me play wall some music while you think about your life choices. What happened next would be discussed in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come, assuming anyone survived to discuss it. The cultural hegemony, a state-of-the-art warship with enough firepower to crack a moon, that suddenly began broadcasting what could only be described as the absolute worst music ever created by any species anywhere. It started with something that might have been pop music if pop music had been tortured by tone-deaf aliens with a grudge against harmony. Then it got worse. Much worse. The ship's speakers, designed to carry critical battle communications, were now pumping out what sounded like a combination of dying whales, malfunctioning synthesizers, and someone trying to sing opera while being stung by bees. "What is this?" Vex screamed over the audio assault. "Oh, that's just Earth's Greatest Hits collection," Murphy replied cheerfully. "Volume 11. We've got 47 more albums if you're interested." The crew of the cultural hegemony began abandoning ship. Not because of weapons fire or hull breaches, but because they literally could not tolerate another second of what humans apparently considered entertainment. They fled in escape pods, lifeboats, and in at least one case, by putting on a spacesuit and jumping out an airlock. Captain Murphy watched the evacuation with professional interest. "Why, I'll have a nice day now. And remember, there's plenty more where that came from." The third ship, Manifest Destiny, tried to sneak past by taking a wide detour around the human patrol zone. Commander Zalox was proud of his tactical brilliance right up until his ship encountered what the humans would later describe as gravity hiccups. Space, it turned out, was not as empty as advertised. Every few thousand kilometers, Manifest Destiny would suddenly lurch in a random direction, as if gravity had decided to take up recreational bowling and was using starships as pins. "What's happening?" Zalox demanded as his ship performed an involuntary barrel roll. His science officer, desperately trying to make sense of the sensor readings, could only offer confusion. "Sir, gravity in this region appears to be playful." Another lurch sent the ship tumbling end over end like a cosmic gymnast with inner ear problems. The crew, strapped into their stations, could only hold on and wonder what they'd done to anger the fundamental forces of physics. "This is impossible," Zalox protested, just before another gravity wave sent them spinning toward a nearby asteroid field. "Gravity doesn't work this way." But apparently in human space it did. After 6 hours of cosmic pinball, Manifest Destiny limped away from human territory, its crew dizzy, nauseous, and thoroughly convinced that humans had somehow weaponized physics itself. Which, as it turned out, wasn't entirely wrong. The final two ships, Inevitable Conquest and Academic Pride, made it to the edge of Earth's outer defense perimeter before they encountered Admiral Thompson. Thompson was the kind of human who made other humans nervous, not because he was loud or aggressive, but because he was quietly, efficiently competent in the way that suggested he'd seen terrible things, and had probably been responsible for some of them. "Gentlemen," Thompson said, his voice carrying across the communication channel with the flat authority of someone who'd never needed to raise his voice to be heard. "I'm Admiral Thompson, Earth Defense Command. You seem to have missed several opportunities to turn around." Commander Blaxus straightened in his command chair, prepared to negotiate from a position of strength. "Admiral Thompson, I am Commander Blaxus of the Galactic Council Research Fleet. We are operating under legitimate scientific mandate." "Oh, I know exactly who you are," Thompson replied with the kind of patience usually reserved for explaining things to very slow children. "Commander Blaxus, serial number GC 7745 Delta, graduated third in your class from the Hegemony Naval Academy, married to Zilnox Blaxus, 2 offspring, prefers his coffee with synthetic cream, no sugar, sleeps on his left side, reads military history for relaxation, and has a recurring nightmare about forgetting to file his equipment requisition forms." The silence that followed was the kind of silence that occurs when reality takes a sharp left turn and nobody's quite sure how they ended up in this particular timeline. "How did you?" Blaxus began. "We know exactly how many sugar cubes Ambassador Kreeg puts in his morning tea," Thompson continued conversationally. 14. In case you're wondering. "We know that Dr. Quilmoth is writing a dissertation on comparative xenobiology that nobody will ever read. We know that Captain Vex collects vintage plasma rifles, and has been lying to his mate about how much they cost. Dr. Quilmoth's gelatinous mass wobbled with indignation. This is impossible. Humans lack the technological sophistication for deep space surveillance. Thompson's laugh was the kind of sound that suggested someone was missing the point so spectacularly that it had become amusing. Doctor, we've been watching you people argue about border policies for 30 years. We know your ship classifications, your tactical doctrines, your cultural preferences, and your bathroom habits. We've cataloged 14 distinct species, mapped your trade routes, and figured out exactly how your various governments work. But your technology, Blaxus protested, is exactly what we want you to think it is, Thompson finished. Primitive chemical rockets, basic nuclear weapons, crude communication systems. We've worked very hard to maintain that impression. The Admiral's image shifted on the screen, and suddenly the two alien ships found themselves looking at a three-dimensional tactical display showing their exact positions, energy signatures, and structural weak points. Your crews from the other three ships are alive and well, Thompson continued. They're currently in what we call timeout zones, comfortable detention facilities where they can think about their life choices while enjoying Earth entertainment. The music selection is curated specifically for each species' psychological profile. This is a violation of galactic law, Blaxus sputtered. Whose law? Thompson asked mildly. You see, gentlemen, that's the fundamental issue here. You've been operating under the assumption that your law applies to our space. But we never agreed to your authority, never signed your treaties, and never acknowledged your jurisdiction. The tactical display shifted again, showing the positions of what appeared to be hundreds of human vessels, previously invisible to alien sensors. We practice what we call asymmetric deterrence, Thompson explained. We don't try to match your firepower or your numbers. Instead, we make the experience of bothering us so unpleasant, so psychologically disturbing, and so fundamentally weird that most species decide we're not worth the trouble. The gravity weapons, Dr. Quilmoth began, aren't weapons at all, Thompson said. They're construction tools. We've been mining asteroids in this system for decades. Turns out, if you know what you're doing, you can create some very interesting gravitational effects with properly positioned mass drivers. And the music? Blaxus asked weakly. Thompson's smile was visible, even through the communication link. Oh, that actually is our music. We're very proud of it. The horror on the aliens' faces was palpable. Now, Thompson continued, you have two choices. You can turn around, go home, and tell your council that humans prefer to be left alone. Or you can join your colleagues in our timeout facilities while we decide what to do with you. It wasn't really a choice at all. The emergency session of the Galactic Council 3 weeks later was standing room only, which was impressive considering that some of the species didn't actually have the capability to stand. Ambassador Kreeg sat in the front row, obsessively counting and recounting a small pile of sugar cubes while his eye twitched with mechanical regularity. 14, he muttered. Always 14. How did they know about the 14? Captain Vex had developed a nervous tic that caused his scales to change colors at random intervals. Every few minutes he would glance over his shoulder as if expecting to hear that terrible, terrible music again. Dr. Quilmoth's usually stable gelatinous form kept wobbling unpredictably, and he'd submitted a formal request to have his memory selectively edited to remove all knowledge of human popular music. The testimonies were illuminating. They knew everything, Kreeg testified, his voice cracking slightly. Personal details, classified information, private conversations. It's like they've been listening to every word we've said for decades. The crew members who were returned, reported Captain Vex, his scales cycling through what appeared to be a rainbow of nervous breakdown, described their detention as educational. They were shown Earth documentaries about human history, with particular emphasis on something called psychological warfare. They also mentioned a human saying, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." We may have misunderstood what they meant by stick. The council chamber buzzed with uncomfortable murmurs. Several delegates made notes to update their species' intelligence assessments of humanity. Others quietly began drafting non-aggression treaties. Dr. Maine. Quilmoth, speaking through a voice synthesizer because his normal speech mechanisms kept wobbling, delivered his report. Based on our encounter, I must revise my previous assessment of human capability. They have demonstrated mastery of advanced surveillance technology, psychological operations, asymmetric warfare doctrine, and what appears to be weaponized entertainment. The session moderator, a being that looked like a cross between a mushroom and a filing cabinet, called for order. The question before the council, the moderator announced, is how to proceed with human relations given this new information. The vote was even more unanimous than the previous one. Motion 7745 Omega, Pace. The Galactic Council hereby acknowledges human territorial claims and strongly recommends that member species respect the posted boundaries around the Sol system. The subtext was clear: do not poke the humans. They bite back. But what the Council didn't realize, as they patted themselves on the back for their diplomatic wisdom, was that the humans had never stopped expanding. While the galaxy's great powers argued about border policies and territorial rights, human survey ships had been quietly mapping stellar resources, cataloging habitable worlds, and establishing supply caches throughout local space. They just did it quietly, without fanfare, and with a level of stealth that made their original defensive capabilities look primitive by comparison. Admiral Thompson, watching the Council proceedings through channels that definitely didn't officially exist, smiled as he updated humanity's strategic assessments. The galaxy was full of species that confused noise with strength, size with capability, and aggression with competence. Humans had learned long ago that the most dangerous predator was often the one that let you think you were safe right up until you weren't. The warning buoys continued broadcasting their polite messages to empty space, a friendly reminder that humans were always happy to share their neighborhood with respectful visitors. They just preferred that those visitors call ahead and maybe bring their own music.